Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost, and
275
that's
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah,
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors.
Hey, it's just me over here clearing my throat. Feel like I've been doing that for the last 7 days now. This is Billy. I might sound a little hoarse because it's not because of my long face. It's because I'm recovering from the old flu, thanks to Bill Dan. Probably coughing in my face for a couple days. Got me a little sick. So here we are. I'm cutting in a little intro here. This week we've got Big Jim and Nate Kennedy, a couple big old boys, get together to talk about some turkey hunting. Big Jim has forgotten how to kill turkeys, which makes me happy. And Nate Kennedy has figured out how to kill turkeys, which makes me happy. So we're going to hear a little bit from both of these guys on how their seasons have gone. They've got some stories to share, which are fun. And I'll let you just unpack all of that with their discussion. As far as a couple little updates for everyone, just a reminder that on the website, as well as if you see one of us or contact us, we do have the Pert Near Life Ring raffle, the raffle for the walleye trip on Lake Erie, 4-person, 6-hour trip. Choose the date of your choice. We are selling those tickets, and they are we're selling 200 total, $20 a piece, and all proceeds will be going to the Southtown Walleyes Association of Western New York, and they are raising money for those life rings to be put up along the Buffalo River and the Niagara River. So we definitely appreciate your participation there. The drawing will be done on July 10th. So get your tickets now, between now and then. So we got about a month and a half, we'll just say a month and a half till that drawing. So either jump on the website, get your ticket, or reach out to us directly and get them in person. And I think the last thing I want to say before we jump into it is this was a kind of a somber week here in Buffalo. I didn't post anything about it on social media. I've kind of just tuned out of a lot of social media. But that was one of the saddest things I've ever seen happen in my entire life. That happened to our community here in Buffalo last Saturday. And I don't think I have words. I know there's been a lot of smart and intelligent people that have spoken to this. I think the leadership in Buffalo has done an incredible job. Mayor Byron Brown could not be handling this situation better as far as trying to bring the community together. But that animal that came up from downstate to attack that poor community up here in the city of Buffalo and kill 10 innocent people and wounding 2 or 3 additional, just awful. And pretty sure everybody's aware of that. But keep those people up in the city and that community, keep them in your hearts and minds, and hope that we can someday see an end to all this violence and hate in this world, because there's no place for it. So if you can, I know there's a lot of different fundraisers and GoFundMes. I heard today that the GoFundMe, the big one for that community is up over $1 million, which is just incredible. And I know big sports teams and the Bills are involved, and they're donating money. and helping out in the community. So if you are able and can help in any way, do that. It's the least that we all can do. There's not much that many of us can do other than just try to be a good person and protect your family and your community. And if you see something, say something. If you see somebody who's acting erratic, saying things on social media that don't seem right, we got to say something. We cannot allow this stuff to keep happening in this day of information where we have such an understanding of who the people are around us and so much opportunity for surveillance. We cannot allow these people to keep doing these things to innocent people in this country and around the world. So those are my thoughts on that. I'm sure those are not well thought out or well said, but it's just off the cuff how I'm feeling about it. I love everybody, period. I love the city of Buffalo. I've talked to a couple people I know that live up there and, just tried to express my condolences. And got to stop the hate, man. There's no place for it. So with that, we'll let you listen to Big Jim and Nate Kennedy as they break down some turkey hunting. Feedinum.
I was just on the
What's up,
phone with
buddy?
Billy trying to get this all figured out.
Billy, your IT specialist over there?
Yeah. The podcast guru. Yeah, I'm not good with any of this stuff.
I think you're doing just fine, man. Look we're here.
How the hell you been?
Not too bad, man. How about yourself?
Oh, we're getting along.
That's good. I see you got a friend there.
Yeah, she's looking for some attention,
They usually are.
Yeah. Well, when you go into the basement, that's where she lives. So she's like, "Oh, hey, guys, you want to play with me?"
Love it, man.
So, how's the turkey season been going?
Good. Better than most. We've
Yeah.
been having some fun and having some success, which is awesome. I haven't hunted in a few days now, but we hit it pretty hard the first couple weeks of the season, and I got a bird up here. Jess got a bird, and then I went down to PA for a couple days with a coworker and killed a bird down there too, which was nice. Turkey season's usually my cursed year that it's like every year I get stumped or skunked or end up having a bunch of toms laughing at me, that kind of thing. But this year it's been paying off. So
I think maybe I got your mojo for the year.
yeah, that'll happen. I struggled hardcore with it at first, for sure. Like, well, I say at first, but basically like forever.
Yeah.
We're just having a stroke of luck this year, I guess.
Did you start turkey hunting right off the bat, or were you kind of a latecomer to turkey hunting?
I always hunted. I mean, I killed a bird as soon as I could when I was a kid. And then I would turkey hunt a couple times every year. You know what I mean? We would go, like, I've got an uncle that has a farm outside of the town I grew up in. And like, we'd hunt his place maybe once or twice every spring, hunted a bit with the boys in high school here and there. But even back then, like, always kind of cursed, just I've had so many birds just not play the game, and I don't know if it has to do with being big and sticking out or what. I've always kind of blamed it on that. I killed a bunch of jakes when I was younger, and then probably like, I don't know, 4 years ago, maybe somewhere in there, 4 or 5 years ago, started hitting it much harder and still struggling. And then actually didn't kill my first real tom until last year down in the Finger Lakes, which was awesome. But last year and the year before that, I think I just learned a lot. You know what I mean? I spent more time. It wasn't like going out once or twice. It was like really kind of hunting the whole season.
Right.
And so, yeah. And this year this is my first spring back up in the North Country. And the places that we've got right here local just happen to have birds this year. I don't know if it's like that every year up here. Growing up here, I never hunted public for turkeys. This year, at least the first week and a half of the season, every public place we went to had at least hens. You know what I mean? Like we were having no problem finding turkeys. So that was kind of the first leg up that we had.
So that's pretty interesting because I first started going up north there to my in-laws around Boonville.
Yeah.
Probably 10 years ago or so, 12 years ago, I really got into going up there and hunting. and I was like blown away by the amount of turkeys up there. Um, but they had a bad winter. I want to say it was like 14 or 15. We had a really bad winter. Um, and the logger up there actually said that like he was out marking timber and finding just turkeys laying dead around the trees.
Oh wow, really?
And ever since then, it has not been what it used to be. Um, and it's kind of funny because my father-in-law lives like in the middle of nowhere, and
Right.
you could almost see it just as a matter of like what comes to his yard is the like how the
Really?
population is. Um, and they definitely struggled for a few years, and now it's starting to seem like it's coming back pretty good. And we had a really good hunt on Saturday up there, and it was
Nice.
promising. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a cool area down there. I haven't hunted down there, but I've spent a bunch of time in that neck of the woods, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, growing up here, I had friends that always did very well with turkeys. I mean, that was kind of like the first thing that, like, as kids, they started having some real success in. You know what I mean? But I just never put the time in. So I don't know. There's definitely turkeys and especially like I didn't have time in April and before that to really try to get permissions.
right.
But I think, I mean, on like even just driving the roads, and I'm not talking about just right here locally, but like all over up here, driving the roads and farm fields and stuff up here, there seems to be turkeys everywhere. And like I say, I mean, I've hunted, I don't know, 4 or 5 different public spots so far this spring up here, and we've at least had hens at every spot.
So are you like more up higher or like over towards Ontario or?
Kind of, yeah. I'm on the western side of the Adirondacks, but I'm like smack dab in between the park boundary and the St. Lawrence River. So it's like
Okay.
transition. Where I live is like where the foothills of the mountains transition into the river valley. I've been hunting a little bit closer to the park,
Right.
kind of over in the not in the mountains, but definitely a little bit higher elevation.
Yeah, because our buddy's got a camp in Thousand Islands, and like we'd be up there on Memorial Day fishing. It was always our weekend to go up there and hang out, and
Yeah.
like we'd be fishing down the river, and there'd just be turkeys in all the fields gobbling and stuff. And my uncle goes to the same area still to this day with one of his buddies. They have a lease farm up there, and they just get into tons of birds up there. So it seems like they have a pretty good population up in the North Country here.
I think so. I mean, it's been good to us anyway.
I was glad to see it start coming back here because, I've called in some jakes and stuff in the past 5-6 years up there.
Yeah.
And I've killed a couple of longbeards, but they were like few and far between. So to see what we saw this weekend up there, and we're going up again next weekend.
Nice.
I'm pretty excited. I think we can make it happen, maybe even with a few birds, because I think we got a couple different areas figured out. So
awesome. That's great, man. Yeah, it's cool. How are the birds out by where you guys live? Like last year I hunted in the Finger Lakes and the hunting was great, but I've talked to a couple people this year that have not really been finding birds down there this year.
So we that's kind of funny too, because our camp last year was like completely dead, and we're actually hearing some birds around there this year. And then there's not a lease farm, but a permission farm up around the corner from camp that our buddy Adam has, and he shot a beautiful gobbler up there on Monday of opening week. And there's been just consistent traffic up there of hens, and we got the cell cameras out, and there's some jakes up there, and there was another longbeard, but there was also some other people hunting that property, and we haven't seen him in a while. So
gotcha.
He either got had or got pushed off by the pressure. So it's not too bad. I mean, there's this other farm I hunt here with my buddy, and it's funny because you talk about the curse, and it's like he was like the curse of all curses. I hunted like every day during the week with him. We'd only go out for like an hour and a half, but where he is, it's easy to run out, try him off roost, and then leave.
Right.
But I had him in position several times for shots, and none of them ever connected. And
really,
that was like my goal last year was to get him one, and he had 2 spots where he should have had one. And then my goal going into this year again was to finish that up and get him a turkey finally.
Yep.
And opening day being on a Sunday, I was like, we're going and we're killing you a bird on Sunday. And we went out there in the ground blind, and we got set up nice and early, and there was a bird down the edge of the field that started gobbling. He, sounded like a really good one, and he gobbled for probably 15, 20 minutes on his own. And then he ended up, he continued gobbling, but then there was like Jake gobbles back to the west of us.
Yep.
And then a couple other gobbles. It sounded decent. And then when everything hit the ground, they went straight to the big bird down the field that had been gobbling.
Yep.
And they went right up that gully to him. And then it kind of went quiet for like 20, 30 minutes. And then they started gobbling out in the middle of the field, and we can't see from where we're set up, the middle of the field. So we hear them out there gobbling, and there's nothing we can do about it. But I had the avian set up, and we were just tucked back in the ground blind, and I just worked the pot call nice and soft, and they kept gobbling. And finally 3 broke off, and you could tell they were starting to move good. And they came around to the right, and I saw the 3 heads standing there. And Mike's like, got his binoculars up, and he's like, they're all gobblers. I'm like, yeah, I know. And it was funny because they were looking around trying to see what was going on. And the back one finally picked up the decoys, and he just did that, just started running for it, where he's just full body wiggle back and forth running across the field. And then his buddies realized it, and they started running. And I have this on videotape, but they came running in, and it was one of those deals where, it was dark when we set up, and I was throwing stuff out. And then as the sun started coming up, I was like, I think I put those decoys a little too close to the blind.
Yeah.
So they were like 10, 12 yards from the blind, and those birds came running in, and you can see it on the video. When Mike clicks the safety off, all 3 of their heads look straight at the ground blind.
Oh man.
And then they go up to the decoys, and I think I was kind of in like panic mode, because as soon as they got to the decoys, they kind of turned and looked like they were going to leave, and they were so close together that he couldn't really shoot one.
Yeah.
And 2 started to walk back to the right, and then the 3rd one went back for the decoy. And had I been a little calmer and been calling a little bit, I think they would have stayed right there and put on a show, and we'd have had an easy kill.
Yep.
But I think I was starting to panic myself. And so I told him to take the one on the left, and he bumped the gun barrel off the side of the blind trying to put it out the window. And at that point, all 3 of them started to take off. And he got the gun barrel out the window and got a shot on the one. And this is super funny, because he's always been using his grandfather's old 12 gauge.
Yeah.
And, it's just got a modified barrel on it. And I think that's probably why he doesn't have one yet, because most of the shots he was taking were probably 40 plus.
Right.
And I was never like watching him make a shot, so I couldn't tell him to like wait or whatever.
Right.
So this was why I was excited about the blind, because I was like, you're going to take my gun, I'm going to tell you when to shoot, and we'll be good. So, his shot ends up being like 8 yards with a 12 gauge 3-inch mags and a freaking super full turkey choke.
Right.
And you can see in the shot, he like skins across the bottom of its neck.
Yep.
And it jumped straight up in the air, and then he tried to rack around, and it jammed. And when they hit the ground, he couldn't get another shot, and they went around behind the blind. And he was looking, and he was like, they're still back there. So I unzipped the back window, and had I led with my gun barrel, I probably would have had a bird too.
Yep.
But I peeked my head out to see where the birds were. I didn't peek my head out. I peeked my head like over into the window just to look out.
Yep.
And my chair was in the way, so I couldn't swing my gun. But the 2 of them were standing there, so I started calling, and they gobbled, and the one went in the strut. And then I'm like, I'm just going to see if I can get these things settled back down and get them in. And then the 2 finally walked off, and we sat down and we were talking about what happened. And I thought he missed. I didn't even think he hit it. And he was like, hey, just to let you know, he was like, we were talking, and he was like, I did hit that bird. I saw feathers when I shot.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. So we're sitting there trying to figure it out. And I'm like, I only saw 2 birds walk away. And he was like, well, I saw the third one standing there. And I'm like, I never saw the third one. I only saw the 2. So I'm like, sitting there, and all of a sudden you hear like a wing flap and like hitting the ground.
Really?
And I'm like, oh my God, dude, your bird's like right outside the blind.
No way.
So I zipped the blind open, and I step out, and I'm like looking around. I didn't want to just go like charging out because I wasn't sure where it was. But I stepped out, and it was laying right on the ground over there. So
no way.
Yeah. It ended
That's
up being
cool.
pretty alive, and we had to finish it off. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, at least it didn't get wounded and pushed off or still running around or dying.
Yeah, and you guys got a bird. That's exciting.
Yeah, he was super excited, and it actually worked out great because one of their farms, he keeps on having to go and to open it up in the morning, which is normally, weekday mornings is normally when we hunt together.
Right.
And we haven't been out since together because he's just been so busy with work.
Right.
So that check that off the list, but then ever since I have not been able to put myself in the right position for one.
Man, well, that's exciting either way, man. And there's still some season left, right? I mean, we're only halfway through the month here.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same down there, but with the green up, like this week, everything popped up here, and it's like it feels like May is over with already, and I kind of have my like brains like moving on to the summer, but I keep trying to remind myself like, well, we're only halfway through here. We still got time to hunt. I still have a tag.
Yeah, and that's kind of what like I've been going over to the farm a couple mornings here and there and listening.
Yeah,
just trying to see what there is to go after. And they keep on hopscotching me. So it's like they're one step ahead of me all the time.
Yep.
And the other part of that is I don't want to get these birds all, pressured and pushed off because some of the best hunting we've had over there is the second half of season. So I'm kind of trying to let them birds stay unpressured. And I think they're kind of in a weird spot right now where, from what I've seen, they're just kind of like hanging around. They're not super aggressive at the moment. So
right. Interesting, man.
So how'd your hunts go down?
They were quick. Most of them were quick. It was interesting because I months ago I told myself like, okay, I'm back in the North Country. We've got plenty of ground to cover up here. Like we have a ton of public around, and like we have family property in my parents' place, and we have a little lease. And but I told myself like, we're back up here and I have the time. So like in April, I made this huge plan. Like in April, I'm going to knock on doors. I'm going to get as much permission as possible. And then April, I ended up traveling a bunch for work. So I was in Minnesota, Massachusetts, Maine, just kind of like back to back to back. And I ended up, even the opener, I was in Maine. And so I came home. I came home from Augusta, Maine, the 1st. And then I got here and kind of just didn't really have a plan. Hadn't been scouting in like a week, but I had scouted previously, and I found some birds on public, big woods public, no ag or anything, just kind of stroke of luck. Was out scouting, driving around, and had a couple birds cross the road in front of me, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I had cameras up in that area for deer season last year, and I had turkeys on them. So I had a good feeling that there was like, at least kind of, ground to stand on, but I didn't have anything kind of set in stone. So that was the opener. Got some sleep and got right up on that Monday, the 2nd, and drove up to a place that I had seen a bird, was listening from the truck, listening from the road, and not hearing anything. And it started to get light. So I just kind of took a hike. I walked few miles up around this big pond, and everywhere I went I could like get to the next little listening spot, I would think, and then there'd be like another creek running down into this pond. So I ended up just like hunting this 2-hour hike of land that I couldn't hear a gobble if it was 40 yards away because I kept hitting all this water. So I made my way back to the truck, and I drove out, and I was headed maybe, I don't know, 2 miles, maybe less, just to another area on that public. And kind of like just, I don't have a good like excuse for why it happened, but I just pulled off and I took off up the trail, the access trail to this public, and I didn't make it. I mean, I didn't make it a stone's throw from the truck, and I heard a couple birds gobble. And I didn't know what they were, what was going on, so I pretty much just set up as quick as I could and got ready and started calling. And I called 2 jakes in a couple 100 yards in like maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. They just kind of booked it. They had a hen with them, which was weird because she was kind of calling back at me, and her and I were kind of, going back and forth for just a minute. And then she actually turned and like went back out to the access road and cut up into the other side of the road. And they didn't, I'm not a, avid turkey hunter. So for me, that was pretty cool that they just kind of let her go and came storming right into me.
Right.
Which was cool. So they popped out at like, I don't know, maybe 30 yards. And I was kind of waiting for the second one to pop out because I'm just assuming in my mind that one of them is a tom, and finally got a look at both of them and realized they were both jakes. And I had like a split second where I was like, oh, it's the first hunt of the season. Am I going to shoot a jake? And then I was like, I'm not passing this up. I've never even killed a bird by myself,
Oh yeah.
So I shot one of the jakes right then and there, and it was my first time ever killing a turkey by myself. No decoy, just kind of, in the big woods calling one in on my own. So I was really excited. And it was a, decent little jake, and his friend kind of stood there, and this is my wife's, she hunted last year a couple times, but this is like really her first year where she was like, really adamant about going turkey hunting and excited and geared up for it. Right. And I told her, I said, well, I wish you would have called into work or something, because it would have been the perfect chance for you to kill your first bird and or for us to shoot a double, because I shot that jake and that other one just hung around,
Yeah.
So that was, I was on cloud 9. I could have ended my season right there and been just as happy. I took the bird. That spot's not too far from our camp. So I took a bunch of pictures, and I took drove up to camp and just kind of hung around and enjoyed the morning. And that was awesome. I was on cloud 9, like I say. And then the best part about all that is that really got Jess fired up, because we ate the bird that week. And I told her that there was another one up there, and that morning I had heard a couple gobbles off in different directions, so I knew there were birds around. And so that would have been Monday the 2nd. So that weekend we were planning to go to camp to do some turkey hunting and to just kind of hang out for a little bit. And then we do a lot of we pick a lot of leeks, like ramps,
right?
In the spring, and so she loves that. So we were kind of just gearing up for this like big lazy weekend. But I was like adamant, like, we're gonna get you a turkey. Like, this is we're gonna make it happen. I was a little cocky because I'm like, I already called one in. I mean, I know what I'm doing, And so her and I went to camp. Would have been Thursday. So I killed that bird Monday. Would have been Thursday. We went up to camp, settled in, got some sleep. And that next morning we were down. There's kind of like a big parking area, and we kind of set up shop there in the dark. And it wasn't far at all from where I had killed that jake. And we weren't there 10 minutes. And some owls started going. And once those owls started going, we heard a couple different birds gobble.
Nice.
And she's hunted, like I say, a couple times last year, but she was fired up. We were taking off up the trail, her and I just hustling, getting closer and closer, and he was hammering on the roost. And we end up cutting, probably, I don't know, 700-800 yards up this trail, and he was up on a big ridge above a swamp. And so we started to work our way up that ridge, and she was right behind me. Like, every time he gobbled, her and I are just giddy, just getting just stoked, smiling ear to ear, all excited. And that one happened quick too, man. We got within, I don't know, I would say maybe even a little too close, like probably less than 100 yards from him on the roost. And we were just kind of standing there thinking about where we were going to set up and talking a little bit. And he gobbled again, and I could tell that he had flown down.
Right.
And I called once, I think, while we were still standing there, and he went right off. And I could hear a couple, sounded like Jake's, but I'm not good enough at this to know for sure. But there were a couple birds like a little further up the ridge.
Yeah.
And I gave her the face mask, and we suited up and sat down against this, tucked in under this hemlock tree. And it was like we were on the first kind of plateau on this ridge, and he was like up above us on the next one.
Yeah.
So because of the terrain, like I was pretty sure he was going to come right down this kind of little chute, but I had told her, like I told Jess, like, I don't know that we're going to be able to see him before he pops out. So
Right.
let's get ready, because he's definitely like 100% coming. He was getting louder and louder and hammering.
Yeah.
And I said, let's just get ready. And she was shooting my little youth model 870 with a modified choke. Nothing special. And but we got her all geared up. And meanwhile, I'm thinking like, well, I'll get my gun ready too, because
Yeah.
definitely more than one bird. And I only called, I don't know, a couple times, and he would just kind of read the script, as they say, he said exactly what we thought was going to happen, popped down over that little rise. Of course, I could see him because I'm, a foot taller than she is. So I'm like, okay, there he is. Now's the time. Like she was like ice cold, calm, collected. I'm
Right.
freaking out, right? Like I'm breathing heavy, and I'm like telling her to be patient, but I'm also like, okay, shoot him, going back and forth, like, well, take your time, but shoot him, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
wait till you have the shot, but there he is, so kill him, and she's just ice cold the whole time. It was hilarious. And he came over this little rise. She couldn't see him at first, and he finally took a couple steps to the left. He never gobbled in front of her, but he went in full strut. And then as soon as he came out of strut, he popped his head over into a little shooting opening that she had, and she dumped him at 30 yards. And
Nice.
her and I were stoked, man. Like I
bet.
just it was just perfect. And it was like 5:20 or whatever, you know what I mean? Just a few minutes after legal.
Oh God, that's perfect.
It was so early, and it was still gray light, and we're way up on this beautiful ridge above this swamp on a piece of public that my, great grandfather hunted, you know what I mean? And we must have sat up there for an hour and a half, just sitting there leaning up against a tree. Can't believe this just happened. And she was fired up, man. She was really into it, and we took a ton of pictures and just kind of enjoyed the day, and we took the bird back and cleaned it up afterwards. And I actually just put him in a little brine today. We're gonna eat her bird this week. But it was awesome. And so the best part is we didn't know this, but her bird turned out to be just one of the prettiest turkeys I've ever seen.
It looked like a good bird.
Beautiful, big, beautiful bird, long beard. Even like right down to the like the patterns on his feathers were just like just something I'd never seen. It was like little rose gold hearts all in the secondary feathers, and it was gorgeous. So she was stoked, to say the least. We had a great time, and then we picked a shitload of leaks and took a bunch of naps, man. It was nice. We relaxed watching movies and shit. It was great.
That does not sound at all like my turkey season so far.
No, I know. Mine either. I told Jess, I said I'm on like a good long streak here. Like everything that I've set out to do in the last year or two, go deer hunting, get a deer, go turkey hunting, kill a turkey, going fishing, we're catching what we're after. I said, one of these days that luck's going to run out and we're going to have a long dry spell.
Yeah. I don't know, like turkey hunting, I've been doing that, it's got to be going on better part of 16 years now, somewhere in there, 14, 16, and I've killed at least a bird every year. And we're like halfway through the month, and my wife was like, "You starting to worry?" And
oh boy,
should probably not talk about it.
Well, mom's the word then, but yeah.
No, I mean, it's one of those deals where like seeing Mike shoot his first turkey, like I get more out of that than shooting another one myself.
Right.
And then the hunt that we had Saturday up north was just like absolute textbook, like the show of what you would want, the best show you're going to get of the season sort of thing. And the shot just never worked out.
Right.
I got up north at like 12 o'clock on Friday night. By the time we got everything unpacked and whatnot and settled down, it was probably 1 a.m. And I was like, I've been going since 3:30 in the morning, and I really feel like I need a beer at this point. So I had a couple of beers, and then instead of crashing up in the bedroom, I just crashed on the couch because I was like, I got to be up in 2 hours.
Right.
So the one thing that I've found from hunting here to hunting there is it actually gets light out about 20 minutes earlier up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I hop in the shower and I get out and we're getting dressed and feeding the dogs, and we wanted to take the ground blind out to the power lines and set it up. And, we're unloading the guns out of the truck and getting the ground blind and the chairs. And my father-in-law was walking between the house and the truck, and he was like, "Did you just hear that?" And I'm like, "No, but it is getting awful light out." And he's like, "Yeah, I just heard a gobble back there." I'm like, "All right." So like we grab all this stuff and we start trekking back there. And, we're down the logging road out to the power lines, which is like 200 yards from the house maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like too light out, and there's like 3 different birds gobbling.
Ooh.
And I'm like, there's like a bank right before the power lines. And I'm like, we better pop this ground blind up here and then just like walk it out to where the trail hits the power lines. And that's just going to have to be our setup because we don't have time to be out walking around.
Right.
So we did that. I threw the decoys out, jumped in the blind, and then the one gobbled, and he sounded like he was on the ground like 150 yards out. And I just called a little bit, and he answered once, and I don't think we heard another gobble after that. And it probably went to like 6:30ish. And I was just doing like every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'd throw out some calls. And he freaking, I heard a gobble, and I thought it was above us in the cow pasture. And it turns out that it was, well, there might have been one up there too, because there's been one roosting up there. But then I heard a hen, and it was like straight out from us towards the creek across the power line. And I was like, that's a hen right there. And then I called again, and then the gobble hit, and then the hen fired up. And then all of a sudden, like all these gobblers were going, like Jake's, good bird, the hen. And they were moving. You could tell, like all of a sudden we hear them, and all of a sudden they're moving quick. And they were on a bank on the other side of the creek, and I was just watching that spot below the bank, and all of a sudden I see one pitch over, and then I see another one pitch over, and I'm like, all right, here they come. And the hen pokes her head up, and then the gobbler gobbles, and he's 50 yards out but over the bank. And right where she popped up, you see the fans start coming over, and he pops up at like 30 yards right in the middle of the logging road, just full strut facing the blind, just beat blue head, just freaking like absolute picture perfect. And she walks right up to the decoys, and then 2 Jakes popped up with him. And then all 3 started coming right for the decoys to the hen too. And he strutted right past all the decoys and the 2 Jakes and the hen. And he was probably like 18 yards, and I had the 410. So I was like really hoping to line up a good shot. And he turned and started heading the other way in strut. And he came out of strut, and I thought for sure he was going to like pop back and strut and spin around. And he didn't. He freaking kept walking. And by the time I realized he wasn't coming back, he was like probably 30 yards walking away.
Oh, man.
And all I had was like the back of his head. And I just didn't feel like that was a safe shot to take. So with the 410,
right.
If I'd had the 20 gauge, I for sure would have done it. But
yeah,
he wasn't spooked at all. He just kind of came in past the decoys, and then it's almost like he had a strut zone there, because he walked off the power lines and got in this one area, and he just hung there. And the 2 Jakes and the hen stayed with us. I just kept soft talking them, and they just kept gobbling, and she was yelping and clucking. And I mean, it went on for 45 minutes. And I mean, you heard just as much gobbling as you normally hear in a season. So
Right.
I mean, it was the perfect show. So to say that you're disappointed with how the season's going because you haven't killed a bird, I mean, it's not really. Yes, it's nice to get a bird, but it's also nice to have that action when you're going and looking for it.
For sure. For sure.
So, and then
And so
you were
you're
talking
headed
about,
back up there this year? Or
yeah,
this
we're going up.
weekend, I mean?
So that was the other thing last weekend is it was kind of a family weekend.
Yep.
So really I was just hunting for a little bit and then going back to the house when we were doing, family stuff and working around the house. And I wanted to put a food plot in. So I was working on the food plot and we just didn't focus too hard on hunting. It was just mostly like the first couple hours.
Right.
And then Sunday I did a little more wandering, checked out one of the state land spots I normally hunt. And in the private field adjacent to it, there was 5 gobblers at 9:00 in the morning. So, pretty much everything around that field is state land. So if they're there, in the evening, you could probably watch them walk in and roost. And
Absolutely.
they're probably roosting on state land and heading out to the field. So I've had really good luck down there in the past. But this weekend we're going up to my uncle's camp, which is right up the road from my in-laws. And I think there's like 5 or 6 of us going.
Nice.
4 or 5 of us, something like that. So that was the other thing was I wasn't trying to push it too hard because I knew we were going to be up there hunting hard this weekend.
Right.
So you were talking about picking ramps. The family wanted to go out and pick ramps Sunday afternoon. So we all go out there on the side hill above where we were hunting. And we're like trekking through the woods to the spot that my father-in-law found this patch of ramps. And we get there, and of course, I'm like walking around this area because we don't go over there much. And I'm like checking out deer trails and trees. And
looking for sheds.
Yeah, they're like, "Would you get over here?" And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "I don't eat this shit. Why do I gotta pick it?"
I know.
So I go over there and hold the bag, and they're putting ramps in it, and all of a sudden, just like out of the blue, just gobble.
Oh man!
It's like 3:00 in the afternoon, and my father-in-law looks at me, and I look at him. I'm like, "That was a gobble, wasn't it?" And he goes, "Yeah." And them birds freaking gobbled away the whole time we were picking ramps. They couldn't have been 200 yards away, and we weren't being quiet. I mean, we were just doing our thing. They were over there gobbling, so they're definitely around, and something ought to happen this weekend. So
yeah, man. Well, fingers crossed for you. The weather's supposed to be pretty decent.
Is it? I haven't even looked yet.
Yeah, we're camping this weekend in Lake George, and the weather looked pretty good. I think there was a little bit of rain sprinkled in there somewhere, but
yeah,
not enough to keep you from hunting. So,
I mean, I've seen a lot of times a little bit of rain actually, fires things up, before or after the rain or the thunderstorm. Or
yeah,
I've had a lot of good luck hunting turkeys around weather. So
yeah, it poured rain right before and right after I shot that Jake on the Monday of the 2nd.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, that's I don't know. This year's also probably one of the years that I've hunted the least.
Right.
I haven't been around any of the state land that I typically go around here at home. And that's not because I don't want to. I just don't have time to.
Right.
I was kind of bummed when I saw you moved up north, and I was like, damn, I never even got out to take a hike with them. We were going to check out some state land around here, and it's just like time slipped away, and then all of a sudden you're moving back up north.
I know it. I'll tell you what, though, I won't be a stranger down there, though, because there's a couple spots down there I just fell in love with hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
But I heard I've got a buddy lives in Waterloo there, and I turkey hunted. He's a turkey hunting fool, man. And I hunted with him a few times last year, and I scouted with him a bunch last year, and just learned a ton from him. And so that was he's kind of my kind of go to texting back and forth about turkeys if I have a question or something like that. And the first week of the season, he was like sounding like he was ready to pack the truck and skedaddle somewhere else. He was saying that there were birds nowhere to be found. And in the last week, it looks like he's tagged out. I think he got his father a bird or two, and potentially somebody else a bird or two. So he must have found some birds because he was like, "There's no birds. All my spots are dry. I don't know what's going on." And then in a matter of like a few days, he's like, "I heard you were down in PA. I'm thinking about going down there because I don't have a tag here anymore." So must have found some birds somewhere, man.
How'd you end up getting into the PA trip?
Yeah, that was cool. So that so for the Rough Grouse Society here in the Northeast region, there's currently 3 of us. About to be 4, but so it's obviously myself and Todd Waldron, and then the other guy we work with, Trip Way. He lives in PA, so he shares our region, but he lives down there, and he's a member of a hunting club down there, and just kind of wanted to have us down for like definitely some turkey hunting and some trout fishing, and we were going to do kind of like some calendar planning and team building stuff down there for work as well. And so Todd ended up not being able to make it, so I still took the drive down and met up with him, and he had turkey hunted the property, I think, a little bit in the past. I don't think a ton, but he had scouted it and said there were, no shortage of birds around. And I met up with him last Tuesday night, kind of did a little bit of scouting, saw some birds, and actually saw a black bear with 2 cubs, which was badass. Because even though I'm from northern New York, I have not seen a ton of bears in my life, so that was awesome.
Really?
Yeah. But so we got up bright and early on Wednesday and went to where we had seen the bird the night before, and I don't remember. I want to say it was just a hen that we had seen the night before. I could be wrong. Regardless, you had seen the photo because you messaged me, but there's a lot of ground to cover, but one of the main spots that we hunted for a couple of days is just this huge power line. And there's like these little kind of micro fields all along the power line, that's kind of like where the birds seem to be hanging out. But that first morning, him and I just split up a few hundred yards on this power line, and he ended up hearing a bird gobble kind of way off in the distance. And we set up kind of on the edge of the power line and tried to work that bird for, at least an hour, I would say. And it wanted nothing to do with coming out of the woods into the power. Like, it was like never going to come out, no chance. And meanwhile, there's birds gobbling in every direction. And so we kind of like tried to leave it alone for a little bit and hiked a little further up the power line and ended up kind of like about to give up on the bird. And literally just like standing around trying to come up with what we were going to do next. And the bird had moved down the same direction that we went. And so he gobbled in the woods, probably only a few hundred yards. And so Trip and I kind of just dove in and set up on the edge of this like little swampy area where like the kind of little hemlock grove meets all these big open hardwoods, a lot of like oak and hickory. And we set up and he called and we worked that bird for a while. I mean, maybe another hour, maybe not that long, but felt like forever, Right. And I never touched a call. He was calling to this bird back and forth. Ends up this other bird shows up, kind of like moves into the scene, and kind of like with Jess and I, except a little different. He can see these birds forever, so he's like whispering, oh, this big, beautiful, long beard. He's in full strut. And meanwhile, I'm just looking at trees and leaves, right? Like I can't see a damn thing. But this bird, Trip called maybe 3 times to this bird, and it probably gobbled 75. Just sounding off one after another. It was insane. And we hadn't really like made a formal plan as to who was pulling the trigger. And because I had already killed a bird earlier in the week, or the week before, I wasn't like, all geared up for it. And so I was kind of kicked back because he could see the bird and I couldn't. And so he's like, telling me it's getting closer. Finally, he's like, he's got his gun up. He's like, the bird keeps gobbling and he's wicked close. All of a sudden, this little teeny tiny whitetail comes bounding in between them.
Oh, Jesus.
Starts blowing. Finally saunters off. I'm thinking like, well, this whole thing is screwed. There's no way that turkey's still standing there, right? And I turn over to like kind of glance at him, and I notice he's still like freeze frame, ready to go, staring down the barrel of his gun. And he's like, I think he might have told me that he was coming in again, but it was to the point where like I'm 100% certain that he's about to kill this bird.
Right.
I hear him take his safety off, and I'm like, okay, like clearly the bird is standing right in front of me and I can't see it. And just as I think he's about to shoot, I finally see the bird. It like steps out to where I can just barely see it. And he whispers to me, "Do you have a shot?" And then at that point, I'm like all excited because I can finally see this turkey that we've been talking to for an hour. So I just said yes, even though I didn't really have a shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. And he's got his, safety off, ready to go. And he's like, "Do you have a shot?" And I was like, yes. And he's like, "Okay, take it." So I like pop up, take my safety off, and like poke out around this tree all in like one fluid motion, and just at like 50 yards drop the bird, which was great. But I was at the same time, I looked over at him. I'm like, I can't believe you just gave me the green light on that at the very last minute. That was awesome. And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, you drove all the way down here to hunt with me. And I was like, yeah, but I was 100% sure that you were about to kill that bird.
Right.
But that was just a big, beautiful, gorgeous tom. And the other one, again, just kind of sauntered off. I had almost thought there for a second that we were going to get a double.
Nice.
Like you always think that that's going to happen. But
yeah,
it was awesome. I mean, it was definitely the most, quote unquote, like most I've had to work. I haven't killed a lot of turkeys, and the ones that I have killed have happened relatively fast.
Right.
And this was like the first time that it had been like, okay, we've been messing with this bird in one way or another for like at least a couple hours.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. And we actually we did a little more hunting. We hunted till noon both days that we hunted together. That was the first morning. I think we covered like 10 miles that first day. Which is a lot for your boy.
Yeah, I hear you.
I left a few calories in Pennsylvania, that's for sure. But
yeah.
But there were turkey. We ended up finding turkeys everywhere. We we never got another bird that morning, but we saw plenty of turkeys and heard lots of them. So we did a little fishing, got a little work done in the afternoon, kind of hung around for a while. And then we spent a solid few hours that evening driving around scouting.
Nice.
And ended up finding another longbeard just before dark, like right before it was going to roost.
Yeah.
And so that second morning, we played around with that bird first thing in the morning for a good long while. Then we walked a few miles, and along those few miles, we set up on a pair of jakes that we had called in and spooked. We found a bunch of turkey sign. We kept hearing birds. And then we were like gonna call it mid-morning, and it was kind of like one of those things like, all right, well, there's one more spot where we saw Tom yesterday. Let's go, at least play around over there for a few minutes, and then we'll call it. Well, you know how that goes. We end up walking through the woods, finally get the bird to gobble, set up on it, calling back and forth with this bird for an hour. I end up seeing it at like 100 yards through the woods, like clear as day, could see that it just big old rope on it. And we mess around. We hike way back out and come way around again. Another turkey comes in on this one, so now all of a sudden there's two. And we get set up in this little, like just a little hellhole where we're like both tucked up under these scraggly pine trees, barely any room to move, and got this beautiful shooting window to the left. So Tripp's in front of me. He's all set up, staring down the barrel to the left, and doesn't this bird pop out at 8 yards to our right? And 8 yards is close, but it felt like 3 yards. I mean, it was so close you could like feel the bird when he stepped out. It was ridiculous. And there was nothing we could do. Tripp, I mean, he stepped out. He didn't see a decoy. He was like, what the hell's going on here? And he putted a couple times like he was going to take off, and Tripp swung his barrel and took a shot at 8 yards. And like you were saying, I mean, he's got a, Benelli with a turkey choke on it. You're shooting, what are you shooting at 8 yards? Like a quarter,
basically the size of your wad still
at a moving bird. So it was like, Tripp was super disappointed that he missed. And I was just the whole time, I mean, probably annoying him, but I was just like, it's pretty easy to miss 8 yards, it's probably easier than hitting the bird at 8 yards, and so it was exciting, but it was one of those things that happened at like 11:45. It was like, and thus ends the trip, Yeah, it was funny. He was bummed. I thought it was incredible because it was like the closest I've ever been to a turkey. I mean, it was wild having him drumming and spitting at 8 yards.
We were talking about old stories at camp a couple weekends ago.
Yeah.
And my uncle brought one up from one of the youth hunts. We had the younger cousins, so when we got too old to do the youth hunt, we'd be like the guides.
Yep.
And so it was me, my uncle, and his son. And I set up kind of just on a tree back behind him to the left. And it was him and his son on the same tree, but his son was facing downhill. We had the field to our backs because typically they come up from the woods to get to the field.
Yeah.
So we're set up like that. There's a bird gobbling below us on roost. And I get into him, and he flies down, hits the road, and is coming up to the left. And his son, Joe, he couldn't swing on him. And that bird was literally, no joke, like 5 yards behind me. And he was drumming and freaking gobbled like right down my neck. My uncle was like, I was looking at you, and the bird was like 5 yards over your shoulder. And that thing gobbled, and your eyes just like blew up. And I'm like, I knew he was close, but it was one of those deals where I just wasn't moving because I knew he was close. But 2 jakes ended up running in behind him. And my cousin got one of those. But yeah,
Nice.
I mean, having a bird like that all fired up that close, it's insane.
Well, I said to Trip too, like I would love to know the percentage of missed turkeys that have to do with a bird being too close and or having to move your gun barrel.
Right.
Like I would be willing to bet it's the vast majority of turkeys that are missed is either because the bird was too close or because you had to swing.
Yeah. So little pertinent pro tip on that.
Yeah.
I've been on several hunts where guys will sit down on a tree, and when they put their gun on their knee, there's another sapling or something in front of them where they can't swing to the left or to the right. My brother was one of those. We hunted up in the same area with my cousin on that youth hunt, and we had there was a gobbler and 7 jakes, and we had the gobbler at 12 yards, and neither of us could get our gun barrel to him because there was saplings in the way. So when you pick a tree to set up, make sure you got a little bit of range and motion.
Yeah.
Because that bird should have been dead for sure, and we just neither of us could swing on it.
Yeah, I took a little bit of the blame too, because like you said, I mean, we were up under these nasty trees, and there was definitely brush in the way, and especially for him, when he swung, he had to swing through some stuff. And I told him, I said, I'll take a little bit of blame because when we got up to look at the shot and kind of assess the situation, if we would have taken 10 steps forward before we set up, there was just this beautiful opening that bird came right through. And right before we set up, he said to me, do you think we should keep going? Do you think we should move a little further? And at the time, that bird had gobbled, and it just sounded like it was so close. And I was like, I definitely told us to sit down. I was like, no, we should sit right here. I said, if we would have moved up a little ways, we probably would have had that bird. But it was exciting nonetheless, man. And just cool. I mean, they're just, I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun this year, just being around turkeys. I've had a lot of turkey hunting time spent not being around turkeys.
It definitely wears on you and gets tough when you're out there day after day. You're leaving the house at 4 a.m. or 3:30 in the morning, and you're standing out there, and then you're working long days, and when you're not having luck or not even hearing them, it's one thing if you're seeing birds and hearing birds and you're just not getting them, but if you're not even having action, that'll start to wear on a man pretty quick.
Yeah, start to make me. I've tell you, I've been really enjoying hunting with other people because I find that it gets me out of bed in the morning. Whereas this is one of those things, I can get up and deer hunt day after day after day. That extra couple hours that you got to get up for this turkey hunting thing, man.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for somebody waiting for me at a trailhead or a parking lot somewhere, I'd probably talk myself into going back to sleep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the times the best hunts you have are after 9 o'clock in the morning once they finally get down and do their thing, and then they're going and looking for more. So you don't technically have to get up early, but it just doesn't seem right to not be out there early.
I know it. I know. It's funny too. Like if I overslept on a day I was going turkey hunting and I woke up and it was like 7:30, I'd probably scrap the whole day.
Right.
When really that's probably a great time to just be getting started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When we got back to the truck open in the morning, we were like almost back to the truck, hauling all this stuff back to the truck. I looked at my buddy and I go, "You know the funniest thing about that whole thing?" And he goes, "What?" Well, you probably would have been better off with your gun.
Yeah.
I'd been heckling him all last year to use my gun, and then I finally get him out and get him a turkey, and it's like 8 yards away. I'm like, you would have been better off with a modified barrel right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
so what did you end up with for a 410?
We actually bought a Henry 410.
The single shot?
Yep.
Wood stock?
Yeah,
they're pretty sharp looking.
The quality, craftsmanship, I don't think you're going to get much better than that.
Really?
Because I was looking into a 410 even after we bought this one.
Yeah.
This one was my son's first gun.
Nice
so
move.
Of course we had to put a red dot on it and get it sighted in, try it out. But that 410 is just like, you can tell just by the brake action and just like the shell ejection and just the fit when you're closing it. Like it's quality stuff. Like I would not hesitate one bit to go buy a 20 gauge in it and make that be my turkey gun.
That's awesome. Henry makes a good product, man.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Cool.
But I got another buddy that got me my muzzle loader. And when I got my muzzleloader, he was like, "Hey, I got a bunch of those Stevens 301s," and I'm like, "How much you looking to get?" And he was like, "Oh, like 200 or whatever." I forget what the price was, but
yeah.
I'm like, "Damn, for 200, I'll buy one." And then I went and looked, and it was made in China, and I'm like, "I'm out."
Yeah, well, dude, I mean, that's kind of like the number one selling point with Henry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I know several people that have bought those single shots from them in the last year or so. They look like a sweet gun.
Yeah.
I love it. So
we haven't really gotten into like patterning it a ton. I mean, we shot just to sight the red dot in, and then we used just regular bird shot for that. And then we had like the Winchester Double X 3-inch for turkey loads. And I shot it at 30 was the furthest I shot it. And there was, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20 BBs in the head.
Nice.
Which is plenty. But my concern with that is like how much energy we carrying at 30 yards with a 410. So I'm sure it's plenty. But, when I had that bird walking away and I haven't shot one with it yet.
Right.
With any of my other guns, I would have been like, oh, now's the time.
Yeah.
But with that gun and not knowing, I would have rather waited and see if I can get a cleaner shot with it. But
so how old's your boy?
He's like 1 year and 9 months, I think.
Nice. So I like where you're at here. Is he getting a new his first snowmobile this winter? Or?
I tried. Oh, so this really pisses me off. Now that you got me on this. Skidoo this year, they release all their spring order stuff, and that's pretty much all they're making is spring order now,
right?
Because production's so down. So of course, latest and greatest, the biggest, they got to come out with something new every year.
Yep.
Well, they came back out with a Mini Z.
Yep.
The 120, and I was like, hell yeah, we're buying one of those because they haven't done it in like, I don't know, 15 years. And like the ones from 15 years ago are still selling for $2,500-$3,500 on Marketplace or whatever. And these were like $3,500. So I was like, whatever, let's go buy a brand new one, and we'll have it for when he's ready to ride. So
that's awesome.
A week after they released this spring order, I was up north for the weekend. There's a Skidoo dealer right up the road there. So we go up there and we're like, yeah, we'd like to put one of those Mini Z's on spring order. They're like, oh, we don't have any of those. And we're like, what are you talking about? And they were like, they only allotted us one for our dealership.
One.
And I'm like, so they advertised that they're like coming out with this sled, that everybody should be able to go buy and enjoy the family time with their kids. And
Right.
I'm like, how many people got super excited about that? And I went to their dealer, called their dealer, and our dealer was like, you could have called the minute they dropped it. That sled was already gone.
Really?
And I'm sure, what it is all these dealers, somebody there or the owners or somebody has a kid.
Right.
And they just buy it. So I don't
Can't
blame
imagine just
them
getting
for it.
one.
That's perk of the job, but for the manufacturer to turn out something, get everybody all hyped up about it, and
Right.
you're
Something
allotting
you can't really
dealership
get.
one per dealer. It's like, come on. So I was a little irritated about that one. We did try, but
Well, maybe you can get him a new pickup truck or something instead.
it ain't gonna be electric. I'll tell you that much.
That's classic, man.
I had one of those Ford Lightnings on reserve.
Yeah, I heard you saying that. You didn't take it, huh?
No, they freaking came time for my reservation, so I went on to do it. And they ran standard. They run about what the gas or the the Eco Boost run. So, for an XL it was like low 40s, and for an XLT it was low 50s, and then so on and so forth on the way up model wise.
Yeah.
And they were all sold out. The two bottom models, XL, XLT, were sold out. And they had the option to like extend your reservation or whatever. And I saw the option for extended battery, which, to get an electric vehicle, I would get the extended battery with it, because otherwise you're only going to be able to go so far. I don't want to be stopping to charge all the time, and especially when you're towing the trailer and stuff. I want to be able to at least make it from here to my in-laws. So I click on the extended battery, and it was another $25,000. So it took it from a $50,000 truck to a $75,000 truck.
You said, I'm out.
Yep. I was like, I'll just take my reservation back and be on my way.
Put a few more miles on the Dodge, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, we'll just buy a side-by-side instead before they make those all electric.
Perfect. There you go, man. There you go. Oh.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on and catching up with me. I don't want to pull a Billy and drag this thing on until 10:30 at night.
Old Bill. No, man, I was glad you reached out. It's been a while.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't think I've talked to you on here since like the fall before last.
I was going to say.
Are you going to be out? You guys are having an event like late July, right?
Yeah, the last weekend in July we're doing our beer event.
I've got a wedding that weekend in the Finger Lakes, and I said to Jess that I've never been able to get to something y'all are doing in person. Everything we've always done together has been on the interwebs here. So I said to Jess, if we can pull it off, maybe we'll stay an extra day out there and make it out for a hang, because it'd be good to see all you guys catch up a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be a riot. Billy just put the event out. I don't know if he shared it on Facebook or whether we just marked it on our calendars, but I know it's that last week. I'm pretty sure it's that last weekend in July.
Perfect.
So yeah, that'd be awesome if you stopped out. It'd be a good time.
Yeah, man. Well, I will do my best to get there and bring a little Northern New York down to your big Western New York party.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, keep in touch, man. And if you end up killing a bird this weekend, send some pictures.
Yeah, for sure. Good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, buddy.
We'll see ya.
Talk soon.